Hi there, good evening and welcome to your Sunday show for Sunday the 1st of March. My name is Scott Patterson. If you're joining us across any of our social media channels, be it YouTube, Twitter or Facebook, we're grateful for your time this Sunday night, as always, particularly this Sunday night, based on the day that we've had. And there's no doubt that tonight is going to be quite a noisy one, I think I said earlier on the Twitter feed that I posted out. If you are joining us, thank you. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of it all and my intros, I do want to say the Sunday show is brought to you by our good friends across at the local darts shop online. They can accommodate all your arrows requirements, including installations and accessories. Visit them rather at allthews.localdartshop.co.uk, and supporting us for the duration of the season, our partners for the season indeed: Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, Candid, Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Joined by the three familiar faces that we usually have on a Sunday, and we'll do them in no particular order, certainly not my favourite. Sheryl, how are you?
Do you know what? I would have been so disappointed if you'd gone anyone first, including the new guy, whoever he might be. How am I? Had the game stopped after about 46 minutes, then I would be telling you that I was absolutely on top of the world, but unfortunately it didn't, and I'm no great pal, but I'd imagine I'm like the rest of us.
Yeah. Dougie, I imagine the same applies to you. Good to see you. You're well?
Good evening, guys. Go easy on me. This is my first ever podcast, clearly, as the newbie to the show. I think this is my first of the year, actually. I would like to invite Rangers to my funeral to lower the coffin into the ground so that they can let me down one last time.
Right, so
it'll be a last pod with part like that, big man. Come on.
Do you know that could be a common theme, and I think we will come to that, because one of the things I will ask the panel, are we a panel, perhaps? As the night goes on, we will try and work out exactly where the result today leaves us as far as being in the title race, in air commas, is concerned. Rob, good to see you, buddy. I should say, before I sort of welcome you on and ask how you are, it's good to have the second best Sunday show host joining us again. Huge congratulations on your 2 gigs so far. They have been excellent, and very well done to you. I'm sure that's extended from the team as well. You've done a cracking job. It's good to have you on tonight nonetheless. How are you?
Pish, but thank you for that little boost to tell me I'm the second best host. And to be fair, the show is always made by the guests that a host has on, and the queen of Rangers podcasting is still here, Sheryl Ritchie, so that's good.
Oh my goodness me, it's going to be one of these nights, I can tell. If you do want to get your chat into the chat, then by all means, you know what to do. And if it's of a modicum of sensibility, we will gladly share it and use it as a topic to discuss bits and pieces off of. I did say to the guys before we jumped on, mood wasn't great, so there is zero agenda. So we have an hour to fart around and see how we go on. Rob, I'm going to start with you. Tough day, I think it's fair to say. The big thing for me was the difference in approach. I think first half compared to second half, it was really, really alarming, wasn't it?
It was, and I think everything we did well in that first half, we just didn't do in the second, and that's I think probably what most of us are really, really frustrated with. You know, we had the foot on the throat of our opposition, and we decided to take it off, and we sat back. We were far too passive in that second half, and we allowed them back into the game. Granted, the change in personnel at half time probably helped them. Hattati coming out the middle of the pitch, but when you're 2-0 up in a game against your biggest rivals, you should not be letting that lead slip. And unfortunately, it's probably the season in microcosm there. You know, we've promised so much and delivered the square root of fuck all. So as you can tell, I'm probably not in the best of places today after that, because the only winners out of that result today are Hearts. You know, they're looking at that, and the 2 biggest rivals they're going to have at this current moment, bearing in mind Motherwell are steering up on the outside, have both dropped points today, and given them a bit of a further lead now. So terrible day all round, to be honest, mate. And the disappointing thing is just that gutless performance in the second half.
Dougie, Animations with Thomas 8683, which is a fantastic name. We don't have enough of those names as far as I'm concerned. I think he's absolutely right. The first half was excellent. However, we did take the foot off. Now, what I would say is that I felt that. Now, I said on the pre-match with Stevie and Andy Anderson on Saturday night that the crowd had a huge part to play today, massive part to play. Some of these guys wouldn't have played at Ibrox, as noisy as it was. Did the noise continue into the second half because we were concerned we weren't really seeing that same sort of expression of vigour and energy and intensity that we did see for the first, I don't know, I think you could argue it was there for about 35 to 40 minutes. I think there's an argument it did tail off towards the end of the first half, if you want to admit that. Did we not give the support much to continue the noise with going into the second half?
The message to supporters has been clear. Full 90. I wish the players took heed of that. I think I've always said the support reacts to what's happening on the pitch. In first half, the atmosphere was incredible because that's one of the best halves of football I've ever seen in a Rangers versus Celtic match. And the game probably just sums up where we're at as a football club right now. These players can't pick and choose when they want to play. You know, you can go against Hearts, beat them comfortably at Ibrox, and then you go to Livingston, you drop points against bottom of the league. It's the exact same today in terms of you've gone out first half, you've blown them away. Second half, is it complacency? Is it overconfidence? Something changed second half. You know, it was touched on earlier on, and then Martin O'Neill made some subs at half time. Hatate came on, and he had a great game in the middle of the park, but we didn't turn up. We allowed him to have a good game. They were between the lines. We weren't pressing them as hard. We were really sloppy in possession and in the transition, which kept turning the ball back over against Celtic and allowing them to come straight back at us again. It was a very poor second half, and there's a lot of fingers to be pointed at. You know, we've spoken before we came on the pod that there's a lot of fingers being pointed at Danny Rowe tonight, and to be honest, I can't sit here and defend Danny Rowe because there's a lot to criticise, but I can't imagine for 1 second that Danny Rowe has given a halftime team talk that's told him to go out and play like that. I think that's on the players, but I think what is on Danny Rowe is the subs. I think what changed the game in Celtic's favour is the subs. What impacted us was the lack of subs. We made 2, and there was a lot of guys dead on their feet throughout the game towards the end, and I think that contributed towards the slackness. But I'll raise this: did Danny Rowe look at the bench and worry that the guys on that bench weren't good enough to come on and play, and that's why he's not trusted the guys that are available to him to come on? I don't know, but it's a sore one today, and I know we're going to come on to it. For me, today for Rangers was must win. For Celtic, it was must not lose. Given the post-split fixtures, we are having to travel to both Celtic Park and Tynecastle. They'll know that we've got to go there. Hearts have got to go there as well. I think that point suits Celtic down to a T, and they'll be counting themselves right now as the favourites. Whereas, yeah, I think we've just blown it.
Sheryl, one of the Facebook comments, lack of desire from the players in the second half, and the gaffer was slow to change things when Celtic scored. One of the things that I personally felt was that you expected Rangers to be battling for a point at that point, because you almost think after Celtic scored 1, they're going to score a second, because that just seems to be what they do. They seem to have that ability to get there and sort of and do that, sort of really piss people off. Frankly, they've done it for the last 3-4 weeks, wherever they've been playing, whether it's been home or away. So we shouldn't be overly surprised that they did score again as late on as they did. But do you think there was maybe a slowness to change things after Celtic got their first goal this afternoon?
Yes, absolutely. I remember sitting up in the gantry and I was with Alistair Aird, and I remember screaming at Danny Rowe, like, you must be watching this. You must be watching what we're watching, because we just, from about 5 minutes into the second half, we just sat off them. And again, I remember saying to Alistair, we seem to be quite happy for them to have the ball. there was no urgency in trying to win the ball back. And when we did, in the few occasions that we did, we were just so wasteful with it. We couldn't string a pass together. So those goals were absolutely coming, and the response to it to change things was really, really slow. But I'm going to disagree with Dougie just slightly. I do think there needs to be questions of role, definitely. His subs were slow, and I don't think they were the right ones. I understand why he made them, but they didn't work. However, I said to you guys just before we came on, I think it's absolutely a mentality thing. In the same way that we, to a person in that stadium, knew that they were going to score, and we knew they were going to score again, the team knew that as well, because unfortunately it's what they do, and we know it, and I think our players knew it as well. It was almost as if we were just sitting waiting for them to score again. And I remember going up at half time to go and get something to eat, and the players were really slow and coming off at half time, and Chermiti was waving and everything, and it's almost as if we went off at half time with that mentality of, right, job done, this is brilliant, job done, couple of great goals, the place was absolutely bouncing. We went off with that mentality, but unfortunately Celtic came on with the mentality of, we're going to get something out of this, and faced with that, we weren't able to do anything about that. We just sat back and let them, completely passive.
Staunchy geezer, I think certainly speaks for us all tonight, and I have to say, excellent profile pic. Feels like a loss, but I'm gutted still, and I think we all feel like that. Certainly the chap that sits in front of me has no longer messaged me to say exactly the same. It feels like you've went to Ibrox today and played Celtic and got absolutely pumped, and we know that's not the case. Rob, I think this afternoon we can actually bring it to something a little bit positive. I think we've seen probably one of the best executed overhead kicks I think I've ever seen at Ibrox. Technique was absolutely spot on from Chermiti, and to do it in an Old Firm game, first goal of the game, the goal that at that point, before everyone jumps on me for it, it's making a big difference, isn't it? It was a cracking goal.
It was reminiscent of the late great Ugo Egelg when he scored an overhead kick. But I mean, it was a great goal. Really good ball in from Scott Olsen, and it was a fantastic finish from Chermiti. I think the frustrating thing is that, goals aside, it's the other bits that we're looking for him to deal with and deliver in the second half. You know, when we look at what he contributed as well as the other team, that's when you need a player to kind of be stronger, hold up the ball a wee bit better, win your headers. They didn't win anything in the second half.
Yeah.
But it was a phenomenal strike, and what a way to start the game. But that was coming. You know, it was all one way traffic at that point, and we attacked the game the way that we wanted the team to do. You know, we wanted them to be on the front foot. We wanted to be pressing them. We knew that their back line could be put under pressure, and we were the ones in the driving seat. And it was if you asked if you could execute a game plan at the start of that game, that's everything that you wanted for the Rangers team to do. Even the team that was selected, I think most of us were really happy the fact that he went with the two up top. We were a little bit worried that we might have been shot in midfield, but actually Chukwani and Raskin first half absolutely bossed it.
Yeah.
And that was just a great strike from. We thought Sheryl Dessers was an enigma wrapped up in a mystery. I'm guessing there might be a little bit of a parental test there just to see in case he's got any Dessers blood in him, because Big Chermiti's even worse than him for that. You know, moments of brilliance like that, and it was great because it was the start we needed. Get on top early, get the goal, and it was a chance out of nothing. And what a way to start the game! Really positive. You've got to take your hat off for that.
Yeah, I think. Do you know the thing that got me about Chermiti today is that I actually felt for the first first 30 minutes or so when Ibrox was absolutely bouncing, he looked like he was absolutely taking it. He was feeding off it to a degree, and I don't think he was alone. I think Nadiri, Big Tochi, I thought was excellent the first half, arguably our best player, and doing the bits and pieces that you would expect to do considering the outlay we had from last month. month before last now, sorry. And he was good. There genuinely wasn't a bad performance in the first half, Sheryl, which makes it all the more galling that the second half was so rotten. It's hard to sort of, as we sort of sit and do this at night time, it's hard to work out just exactly what's happened when they've been off for 10 minutes, what's happened in that 10-minute period when they've been throwing oranges down their throat and they've been getting a pat around the back. What's happened for them to come out in the second half and be as unrecognisable to what they were for that first 45?
I just think that the way that we started absolutely snookered Celtic. I don't think they expected it. I don't think they seen it coming, because to a man, we were outstanding. We really were. We went in at half time, and like you, Scotty, I couldn't think of anybody that I thought, they weren't particularly great, but everybody else carried them. We won all our duels. We were in their face. We didn't give them a minute. And I do, as I said earlier, I think they just went in with the expectation that that was what was going to happen in the second half as well, and that the game was pretty much done at that point. But unfortunately, we realised with that Celtic team, they don't stop. Unfortunately, they made their changes at half time. Their changes worked. I understand. I seen somebody saying that they thought the rules should have changed. I don't think he should have changed it at half time. But I think maybe around 60 minutes, he should have made his changes a lot faster, because it was very clear. Again, I think it was 50 minutes that it wasn't going the way that the first half had gone, and he was too slow. There was loads of players as well. Chimity, for me, around 55, 60 minutes, looked absolutely gubbed. And all we kept doing was firing. As soon as Nadiri was off, which I understand because Nadiri was absolutely burst as well. But all we were doing was firing long balls up to Chimity, and that wasn't working at all because he was absolutely gubbed. Jack Butland, I know we'll come on to later. We have a lot to be thankful for. And if he went in there and absolutely leathered every single one of that team after that penalty, which we will come back to, I wouldn't blame him. But his distribution was exceptionally poor as well for the bulk of that second half. It was just firing the ball. He didn't even take it and calm it down a wee bit. It was just firing it right back up, and it wasn't working.
Dougie, Rob, who's watching on YouTube, rightly says, we were always going to need a third goal. I often think, so see when you get a team that goes 2 up, I often think about when I was a wee guy and I was watching Sky TV on the telly. Andy Gray and Richard Keys would always say 2 goal, primarily Andy Gray, certainly. It's probably the only sort of life tip that I've taken from both, I would suggest, by the way.
Liar.
But Andy Gray would always say 2 goals is never enough. Dougie, I almost felt like after we scored the second, I don't want to say we took our foot off the gas a little bit, but I felt that as soon as we got that second, we should have been pushing for a third as quickly as sensibly possible, because there's no denying, if you go in at half time 3-0 up at home, the fans have been going mad for the first half. It just becomes, halftime becomes an entirely easier 10-minute conversation amongst the orange peels getting launched about the dressing room. It just becomes a better conversation, something more manageable.
I think there's 2 points to this. On one hand, at 2-0, Ibrox, Raskin, Celtic were all over the place.
Yeah.
And we were creating chances. Fernandes had a big header. There was actually a penalty claim in the first half as well for Rangers, which I've not seen. I've not seen back, but there was a big claim for a penalty from where I was sitting. Even in the first 5 minutes of the second half, Robbins has a big chance. You take them, the game's out of sight. It's done. Game over. And we'll come back and regret them now. But on the other hand, and I've seen somebody put it in the comments earlier, today for me just sums up the lack of experience and leadership that we have in the team. Because see at 2-0, see if you had a couple of guys in there that were actual leaders, you wouldn't be worried about a third goal, because you knew fine well that we'll see this out at 2-0. We'll be able to get through the rest of the game. I really feel like we are lacking leadership, and it's important that we bounce back from this. And I don't want to talk too much about long term, but seeing this summer, we need to do something about the lack of leaders and the lack of experience. The likelihood is James Tavernier may leave in the summer, and I'm not sure out of the current crop who would actually take the captain's armband after James Tavernier. we may need to go and sign somebody else who comes in as captain, but it's something we need to address, and it was something that was sorely lacking for me today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair point. The leader issue realistically isn't a new one. It's been something that's been there for the duration of the season. I think it's been something that's there probably since Conor Goldson left the football club, to be perfectly honest with you. I think we were used to having maybe Goldson and Tavin there as leaders, voices, McGregor in there at the same point. You're just, people often talk about when it was a COVID season and you're watching the games on RTV, and I appreciate it was different then, but McGregor was quite clear in every instruction he was giving out to his colleagues. Do you know what I mean? We don't have that now. There was moments today, which I felt was quite good to see. There was moments today where you could see Shooter giving people a bit of an ear chewing. There was also a moment in the second half where Nico Raskin and Big Tochi were having a bit of a go at each other. Now, granted, I think that was Tochi giving the ball away, to be honest with you. But I think too many of them almost don't have a go at each other when the chips aren't down. I seen something earlier on where someone had said it was almost a moment where you needed to have someone, a figurehead, to say, right, give me the ball for the next 10 minutes or so. I'll take the ball. I'll take the pressure. Do you know what I mean? I loathe to say someone like a Callum McGregor, but someone where we would maybe used to a Stephen Davis, a Barry Ferguson in years gone by. We don't have anyone like that. I felt for part of the second half, Nico Raskin spent a good 30 minutes or so running about like a headless chicken, and at moments just almost looking like he wanted to play some sort of pantomime villain as opposed to getting his head in the game and concentrating on what he was there to do. Again, though, was someone that was really good in the first half. And I think, Rob, that's the thing that I'm finding really hard to get my head round tonight. Even now, do you know what I mean? We're away from the ground hours now, and you're looking back and thinking, how the fuck did we get from that at 1:45 to that at 2:00? You know?
It comes back down to what we said before, Scott. It's all about attitude, and I think that's the biggest thing that this squad lack at the moment. You know, Raskin is a player that frustrates the life out of me because there's talent there. But You're right. You know, second half he was a man down, and if you want to be seen as a leader at the club, they're the types of situations where you're the one that needs to go and demand the ball, calm everybody down, get the team back on track, and get them back to the basics and playing the way we did in the first half. I mean, I think you could see Danny Rule at the touchline, the amount of times that he was screaming at players to try and get them up the pitch a little bit more and get back into their pressing shape and stuff. He was going toe-to-toe at the side of the pitch, so there was obviously clearly a lack of instruction being carried out by some of the squad members. And while we all might think, or while we all know that he's coming to the end of his career, a player like Tav might have actually helped us in that second half to calm things down a wee bit. You know, people can talk about his leadership and lack of trophies all you want, but the players obviously buy into what he's saying. You see, we've heard it from previous managers. We've heard it from the likes of Barry Ferguson and Steven Gerrard, why they made him captain. And he's the type of player that probably could have helped us just settle a wee bit today and get back to playing. You know, the big worry, and you're right, is that Butland, you know, doesn't seem a leader. He can't even command his box, never mind command a team. Because again, I think he's a bit stuck to his line for that corner. And he probably could have got to that for the penalty that ends up being given away. You know, Shooter, that's the first game. I made the comment to a couple of people next to me. It's the first game I've ever seen him scream at anybody on the pitch, and it was more done in frustration, I think, at some of the players in front of him. And then, you know, Nico, who's one of the other elder statesmen that you'd say in the team because he's played here the longest, you know, didn't exactly cover himself in glory in that second half either. So you're then looking at, you know, players coming in like two Romans, Manny Fernandez, you know, Chuck Wani in the middle of the pitch for them to maybe step up, but none of them really did. And I guess it's a really, don't want to say what I'm about to say. It's a good learning experience for some of the new boys, because they probably didn't actually realise what they were walking into until that second half hit, and then they're like, "Oh, this is what an Old Firm's like then," because it is. It might all be going well, like it was in the first half, but as soon as they get their tails up and get that goal, that's when you need to roll the sleeves up. That's when you need to start doing the dirty stuff again. That's when you need to be closing your men down. And the biggest change was Hatate coming on for them. He absolutely bossed our midfield in that second half, and we let him do it. I think for me, the frustration was when Dio came on, it looked like we were going to go back to a 3 and be a bit more solid, but I couldn't honestly tell you where he was meant to be playing in that second half. He seemed to be a bit all over the place, because I thought he would have brought Olsen off, to be honest, and left Nadiri and Chamiti up front and put Moore behind them in the 10, but he didn't. So it's all ifs, woulds and coulda. Unfortunately, the changes were made, and you're right, it wasn't done quick enough, but the attitude, I think, is the biggest thing that cost us in that second half of the players, because I think you were right. I think they thought, job done first half, we just need to come out second half dead easy, they're never going to get back into it because we've absolutely bossed them, and more fool them.
Can I pick up that on the subs as well? Sorry, Scotty. The Gassama sub on the right as well was an absolute disaster. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I seen a couple of times it was like he was going over to Danny Roll and asking what he should be doing, because he just didn't have a clue. And we've seen him on the left against Hearts. We've seen the impact that he had when he came on playing over in the left. But he just didn't have a scoop what he was meant to be doing. And he was meant to be our out ball as well. There was just absolutely nothing doing. And absolutely
I'm surprised that when he came on, that him and Moore didn't switch, because you're right, when he came on against Hearts, it was the left hand side. He romped up there. But again, that sums up Gassama as a player for me as well, Sheryl. Having to be told twice what you're meant to be doing on the pitch is just ridiculous. You either listen to the instruction before you come on, or the first time you have to go and ask what we're meant to be doing, you then take it and you don't go and ask a second time. Ridiculous from him.
Aye, and it's bizarre that he's arrived. It's quite strange. Gassama's time at Rangers has been really strange. Arrived, European night, looked good. Remember the night he scored in Europe, looked really quite handy. Obviously, the previous manager brought him in. Then Danny Rowe comes in, and everyone thinks that there's that Sheffield Wednesday connection, and they're going to be besties, and he's going to play all the time. Skov Olsen comes in, and I think everyone kind of thinks, oh, this could be a problem for Gassama. Skov Olsen comes in and has not hit the ground running at all, Dougie. And now you've got Gassama, who all of a sudden becomes someone who is almost going to be like an impact sub, and is Rob and Sheryl are sort of rightly picking up. There's a bit of uncertainty about what he even thinks he's going to do the minute he crosses the white line.
Yeah, he was the perfect impact sub against Hearts, but he was on the left when he's cut in. I expect a lot more from guys like Gassama coming off the bench, but I expect a lot more from a lot of players. Skov Olsen, for me, was the one that I wanted us to sign when Gerrard was here, and then we were linked with him again under Gio, and he finally came, and it felt like a huge signing. In January, when you've signed 4 players of the quality, Tour Romans looks a really good player. He had another good game today. But Skov Olsen felt like the diamond. He felt like the game changer that was going to help us win this league. And he's just not done it yet. And it's hard because different players take time to adjust. And, if we remember, I did say it at the time, it took Czerny a long time to get himself up to speed. And the big difference is when Czerny was getting himself up to speed, it was at the beginning of the season. This is a business part of the season where you can't afford to have a guy getting up to speed. But he's not done it for me. I want to see, I still just thought someone like Skov Olsen, whilst he might be getting up to speed in terms of match fitness, etc., that he would still just be a class above everyone. And we've not seen it yet. So it's hard to just single out one player or 2 players in Gassama and Skov Olsen, because ultimately in the second half, you could point the finger at everyone. When you were talking about the first half earlier on, I seen somebody else say their best player in the first half for me was Mikey Moore. I thought Mikey Muir was absolutely sensational first half, but he's one of the guys who in the second half were equally as anonymous. But a large part of that is most of our guys were working off scraps in the final third. I think it might have been Rob who said it earlier on. Our tactic in the second half seemed to just be punt it as long as you can and like hope for the best that Shamiti maybe knocks it onto someone. We lack composure in this team. Composure on the ball, composure in front of goal. And we've touched on it already. It's the leadership, it's the experience, and it's missing somebody like a Stephen Davis in the middle of the park that can put their foot on the ball. And for me, you know, when you're pointing the fingers at Scove, and Gassama, I'm going to just go back to Raskin. For me, Raskin's a huge part of the problem in the second half. He's your experienced player in the middle of the park. He's the guy that's tipped to be captain in the future. And he was anonymous in the second half. His positional play was all over the place. His distribution was awful. Did I see a stat that across the team in the second half, 1 in 3 of our passes went to a Celtic jersey? That's just not good enough. And for me, you need the midfield to put their foot in the ball. So I'm not blaming Gassam. I'm not blaming Scove Olsen. I'm not blaming anyone individually, to be honest, but I'm looking at the midfield and expecting a bit more. And I include Diamande in that as well, by the way, because I actually said at the time, the Diamande sub felt like the right sub at the time. We were getting overrun in the middle of the park. I thought Diamande in the middle of the park would have came in, allowed us to dominate possession, control the game again. I don't really know where we expected him to play. He was almost in the number 10 right behind Sharmiti. And yeah, Diamande didn't cut it today as well. So frustrating second half, Scott.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. Listen, on the Raskin thing, and Raskin seems to be someone who we on the Sunday show have spoke about for almost the best part of the season, by the way, because you had the whole carry on with Russell Martin at the start of the season. And then he did come into a relatively decent bit of form. We all know that when he goes away with Belgium, he plays out his skin. And there was noises just very, very recently that he was speaking about or in discussions with the club on a new contract. And I think he came out and said something to the press that said he's got 2 years left, so he's not desperate to do anything at the minute, which makes me kind of think that he'll be off skating this summer because I don't think he'll be the one that's making that decision, to be perfectly frank. Listen, we are going to speak about what it means for the rest of the season and the title race, and we'll come to that in a second. However, Robert Edgar has brought up something on YouTube, and this is really good. I think this is worth a discussion point in itself, because I am seeing lots of people in the chat suggesting already that there are issues, and it'll be interesting to get each of your opinions on this. Robert says, we speak about mentality in these players, and Friday night's podcast with Amrit and Andrew Stewart and Calvin was excellent. Amrit was at his roaring, bright and happy best, but if you listen to what he was saying, it was absolutely spot on. Everything he said was absolutely spot on. He even made some stoner joke about the formation that I think has went internet wide, which we loved. But if you look into what he was actually saying then, it was all relevant and all absolutely fair. Does the manager have the minerals for a title fight? Robert Edgar, Robert, doesn't think he does. Speak to me.
Difficult to tell, because we've been in this position so many times under so many different managers, Scotty.
Yeah.
I think the way that the only things that we can look at is the way that Danny Rule handles himself, and you look at the demand he's trying to put on the player. Yes, he hasn't been in a title fight as a manager, but he has been involved in teams that have been involved in winning titles in Germany and stuff like that.
Yeah,
he knows the pressures. He seems a very, very switched on manager. He's a young manager, and like players, managers make mistakes, and there will be things that he can point to this season where he's maybe tweaked a formation, made a substitution that hasn't impacted the game the way that it should be. But that doesn't mean we should sack him, does it? You know, did Walter Smith get every single decision right? No, but he did win titles, and we need to get off this roundabout of every time we hit a speed bump in the road, the first thing that we say is there's hundreds of red flags, to use Dougie's terminology. You know, we need to sack him. At some point, we've got to have the minerals ourselves to say we back this guy. We can see that since he's taken over, he's stabilised us. He's shown tactical flexibility in the games up until this point where we've played different systems, and when we were really difficult to beat at the start of his reign, we've started to play more football. I mean, in some of the games we have played some really, really good football. It's now about trying to string that together for 90 minutes. The problem that we've got is this is probably the first title race, and somebody's saying 12 draws, Rob. Yes, Danny Rule hasn't been in charge for all 12 of those draws. 7 of them came under the reign of Russell Martin. What he has been guilty of is the last 5 games dropping 8 points. That's on him. That's on the team. And that's the problem that I think most people are going to have, is that if we don't switch this form and get back to the winning ways, then, you know, we're going to be facing this situation this time next year where we will be looking for a new manager. The proof will be in the pudding. It was always going to be difficult for us to get back into this title race. He has got that now, and I really don't want to hear about, look at where we were from the start of the season. We got back into the race. It doesn't matter now. The thing is, we need to push on and try and make the best of it. Part of that goes on the players as well.
Yeah.
Because ultimately there's players in there that aren't performing. You know, we've just named a couple. You look at Nico Raskin over the last few weeks. I don't think he's actually been at the best of his ability. And one player that we probably did miss today was wee Connor Barron. Now, whether he's getting the age-old adage of getting better while you're out the team, but he's the type of player that would have been busy. He would have covered more ground in that midfield today than Raskin, Chukwani and Diamande in that second half, I guarantee you. And that's what we missed. We missed that dig. Might not be the fanciest player in the world, but he will bust his backside to cover every inch of that grass to make sure that he can cut a pass out and cover the defence. So back to your point, does Danny Rule have the minerals for a title fight? Who knows? But we're going to need to back him because he's the only manager we've got now. We're not going to rip it up and start again just now.
And so I've got an idea of where I think I am on it, and I think we can question any manager that comes into a football club as far as I'm concerned. We're at the tickly bit of the season, like it or not, and there's big match after big match. We've got 9 left to go now, I think it is. And if he wants to win the league, he needs to win every game now. Sheryl, do you see this current crop of players going on a 27-point win run between now and mid-May?
No, I don't. Based on today and based on their attitude and their application and their mentality in that second half, no, I don't. I think we live in a climate where, and we as a group of fans, and I understand it and I get it, but we're so reactionary to things. Do you know what? And the internet as well, like I put on our group chat earlier, the internet was absolutely barking. X was off his chump this afternoon. And we have to get out of this mindset of we need to get rid of the manager. We have a group of players, and I know there's been players in and out, but we still have a core group of players who have seen off at least 2 or 3 managers. And until we give Danny Rule longer and a couple of more transfer windows to get rid of those players with that mentality, then we need to give him a chance. What I did find really interesting was, I think it was maybe Stevie in the press conference asked him about the team mentality. What was the second half performance down to? A drop in mentality, weak mentality? And he dodged the question. He completely dodged the question. But he's not going to sit there and say, actually, I think you might be onto something. They really are a bunch of shite bags. I need to do something about it, don't I? Do you know? So maybe should have, but he's never going to do that. But he knows what he's dealing with as well. I don't think we've all admitted I think his subs should have came earlier, and I think there was a couple of them that didn't work. I don't think he is completely blameless. We've seen Motherwell, he made an arse of that. He made an absolute arse of that game at Fir Park. But like you said, that there was games that Walter didn't get 100% spot on, and we just cannot keep going through this cycle of he's shite, let's get rid of him. And then we get the new manager bounce and things go right, and then we win a couple of good games, the big games, and then we lose a couple of big games, and then nobody. We have to stop that. We have to give him at least 1 or 2 more transfer windows. Let him change the mentality. Let him work with the group, and then see where we're at.
Dougie, I'm actually really looking forward to what you're going to say here, because I think you're in the same boat as me. I think, as everyone on screen with us at the minute, I think we do back Danny Rowe. I think we understand where he is, what he's working with, and we like what he's done, getting us back into this stage, which is exciting going into the end of the season. Hearts are loving it, for what it's worth. But it's fair for us to query some bits and pieces that I think we are seeing with a bit of regularity just now as a wee bit eyebrow raising.
So you said it yourself there, Scott. I've seen somebody say it in the chat as well. When Danny Rowe took us over, we were 9th in the league. The only reason why we are in a title race is because Danny Rowe has got us in this position. So he deserves credit for that. But we are not a team that is happy to be competing for the title. We're a team that's only happy when we're winning the title. Yeah. Danny Rowe needs to understand that. There's 12 draws. I don't know if Rob's right or not by saying 7 were under Martin.
Yeah,
that's a huge problem for me, though, is he seems to be a bit of a manager that doesn't want to lose. But actually, to win leagues, you need to take it that little step further. You cannot keep drawing. 12 draws is not championship winning form. We need to turn those draws into wins. And I've seen somebody say in the chat, Danny Rowe is a young manager, 36 years old, learning on the job right now. Unfortunately, we have far too many young people involved right now learning on the job, and that's where we just lack that experience and know-how. Look at Martin O'Neill today. He knows what it takes, and he knows that 1 point today could be the difference for them. We're just lacking experience right now. On Danny Rowe, we were discussing in the car on the way home, who would you rather have leading Rangers for the rest of the season, Danny Rowe or Askew at Motherwell? And I'll be honest, the majority of guys in the car were saying they would rather have Askew at Motherwell, which is bold, and it's possibly just a reflection on how Motherwell are playing right now, rather than we don't know how he would translate to Rangers and whether his style would work, etc. It's probably just Motherwell are playing some brilliant football, but we're in a battle. The other name that came into the chat today was Derek McInnes. Hearts keep winning 1-0. They keep grinding out the results. That's because they have a man leading them that understands the importance of winning to win leagues. And I just go back to my comment around Danny Rowe. That's what he's just lacking right now. That know-how. That, Derek McInnes has never won a league title. But he's older, he's wiser, he's more experienced in Scottish football. He knows what it takes. That's probably my worry about Danny Rowe, but I agree with everything that everyone said. You don't get rid of Danny Rowe if we don't win the league this season. We give him the summer. We give him the opportunity to bring in his own players to transform the club. And we go again next season. But I tell you, we will change the manager if it doesn't work again. We can't just blindly back somebody because we can't keep changing it. So it's up to Danny Rowe to get it right.
Yeah, I mean, so I agree with the threes. I'm not in the boat for changing him. I've seen bits and pieces that I don't like. I didn't like Motherwell, for example. I absolutely did not like today. And there's fault on some of the players, I think, to that degree, because there's no danger they've been told to go out and play. They certainly better not have been told to go out and play the way that they did for that second 45, because if they were, then it's definitely a problem that we have. But there's wee things that I think we need to be mindful of and watch. And it'll be. I didn't want to speak too much about the game next Sunday tonight, because I suspect it's going to be a big part of Rob's agenda next Sunday when he's on. However, I just wonder if we get beat Ibrox next week, for example, in the Cup, the mood ain't going to be good. The mood ain't going to be good because we've threw away this afternoon. They could potentially win midweek and go above us. We're down into third and then out the Scottish Cup. It would be a horrendous week for Danny Rowe, and he would very quickly go from being everyone's, yeah, okay, players let you down, to, geez, oh, this is a bit of a problem. And that's just the way it works. Let's be honest. You don't need to agree with it. I don't need anyone to sort of nod their heads and say, "Ah, you're right, Scott," or "No, you're right." That is absolutely the way it works. Do you know what I mean? We don't win the league this year. He maybe gets a summer window and he starts no great next year. We're looking for a new manager. It's the way it is. When you become the Rangers manager, you have to come in and over a period of time, you need to win shiny things. You need to hold them over your head and say, "This is why I'm here. This is why I've been given the job. This is why I can justify staying here for a couple of years because my players have won this trophy. And I'm going to hold it and make sure everyone's going to love it." If he doesn't do that, he will look for a job too. He's absolutely spot on. It's just the way it works.
And I think that's fair enough, Scotty. I don't disagree with that. I do think people that are saying that he has to go now are off their rockers.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
And we talk about Motherwell, you look at the last 10 games, they're still, as great as they are, they've taken one more point than us. Hearts have taken the same amount of points as us in the last 10 games. Now, that's not good enough for Rangers because we've dropped fucking 8 points in the last 5. That is ridiculous. If we turn two of those draws into wins, we're level on points more or less with Hearts, and it's a lot closer. And we're not talking about this being the disastrous result that it potentially has to be. Ultimately, there is still a little bit of hope, and this is where my ultra positivity comes in, because Hearts and Celtic have got to play Motherwell, and then they've got to be away, I think, at Motherwell in the split. Motherwell potentially have got a massive say in where this title goes. Not to mention they can claw themselves back into the conversation with some good results as well. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of twists and turns, as we've said a number of times. Today was a massive gut punch because at home, 2-0 at half time, cruising, you've got to see the fucking game out, but we didn't. We've got to make sure we win next week.
He would be my uncle, Rob. It's all if, buts and maybes right now, and you can say right now, we need to go and win all our games. Celtic, Hearts have got to play in Motherwell. We're all playing each other again after the split. I have seen nothing from this team in this year, the turn of this year, that makes me think we're going to go on and win the league. Back to Sheryl's point, are we going to go, is it 27 points on the table? Are we going to go and win all 27 points? I think if you speak to any Rangers fan and they say yes, they deserve to go and get sectioned.
But are the other teams going to win all the 27 points? No, they're not. You don't know if you're going to need it.
You don't have to. Again, it was the league, Rob.
But we can have that discussion, mate. Absolutely.
So it takes us quite nicely on to our final topic of the night, Sheryl. And all I've wrote, and we've kind of powdered our way throughout this in the last 48 minutes or so. For Rangers and Danny Rowe, what do you think it means for the title race for these next 6 games? Because we do know that everyone still needs to play each other. I think, as we've said, that Motherwell have got Hearts and Celtic to play, I think, before the split. Where are you on things now, Sheryl? Today's obviously disappointing. We know that. We've done it to death. We don't need to cover that too much more. What does it mean for us moving forward? One of the things that we said last night, Stevie asked Andrew and I last night, is how we felt it would have driven us forward if we had won, the effect it would potentially have on us if we didn't get 3 points. Where are you on it?
Do you know, I think the big worry for me before I think about the league is actually the momentum, easy for me to say, the momentum that it gives them for next Sunday.
Yeah.
That's now a big thing for me, that they go into that cup game on Sunday in a far better place than I would argue that we do. In terms of the league, Scotty, I think Dougie made, and it's not often that I say this, but a very good point in terms of the Hearts can afford to drop points. And for what it's worth, I don't think they will. I don't think they'll drop many. Celtic, I'm not worried about as much because they're almost like us. They have these games. We've seen it against Hibs. They have this. They have a slip in them as well. It's more Hearts that I'm concerned about, and they're doing what we did in that 55 season, where they're grinding out those 1-0 wins. Do you know, I watched the Edinburgh derby, and Hibs were excellent. Hibs played far better, particularly in the second half. But Hearts just had it in them to get that goal late on, and it's what we're not doing, unfortunately. They are, I think I said it a couple of weeks ago, Rob, they're playing like champions at the moment, and we absolutely aren't. I can't see us going on and not slipping up again.
Rob, I think the one thing that we spoke about last night was about how we can and we should rather affect our own bits and pieces as time moves forward. Everyone can take points off of everyone. It's a really exciting end to the season, I would say, in the first instance, and I think it's going to be something that is going to give us some trips and some bumps, but I think beautifully, Rob, that could apply to everyone, and I think that's kind of the point you're making, isn't it?
It is, but like Sheryl says, the only thing that matters now is this game next weekend, and unfortunately we've kind of lost the momentum for that. They'll have their tails up after coming from 2-0 down, and you saw them, they treated that like a victory today. Realistically, I understand that Hearts have got it in their hands, but there's a different type of pressure post-split when you're the team that's leading. And if you drop points in one game, all of a sudden does that mean you panic when you're going into the next one? They've done it before, and again, I remember Rangers turning around leads that were in a shorter time. Granted, it was a very, very different team, and I understand that we've dropped lots of points, but if we don't hope that we can win this league, what's the point of turning up to Ibrox? That's my view on it. I still think while it's mathematically possible, you've got to at least try and believe a little bit, as Big Marv would say.
Yeah, and Big Marv, yeah, and he's probably someone who we talk about voices, mentality, attitude. While I'm not suggesting we're looking for a guy to maybe sing a Bob Marley hit in the changing room or something like that, you're talking about absolutely having someone who is going to have that sort of that attitude, that fierceness, if you like, to drive the squad on at the minute. Dougie, I think what I'm hearing you say is that today was almost the death knell of our title expectations, strokes hopes today.
Yeah. I'm with Rob though, right? Because realistically, whilst it's mathematically still possible, we don't surrender. We keep fighting. We keep going. I'll be there at Ibrox, backing the team as always. We need to keep winning games. We need to keep backing the team, and hope for a miracle, because that's where we're at right now. It's not in our hands. It wasn't even in our hands if we won today, because we threw that away against Livingston, who are bottom of the league. That's not the sign of champions. The winners right now is Hearts. They're sitting top of the league, and the broadcasters like Sky Sports, because this is an amazing league this season, right? I think we should pay respect to the league this year, because you've got Hearts deserving to be top of the league at the moment. You've got Rangers and Celtic battling it out for second, and you've got Motherwell keeping up there, and Motherwell are a real threat to Rangers and Celtic right now of creeping into the second and third spaces. I think it was Rob earlier on said Motherwell are going to have a big say in where the title goes. There's going to be a lot of twists and turns if we play bingo. Hopefully we're on the receiving end of some positive results, and we just need to keep clinging on to that right now. That hopefully these teams all take points off each other, and we just keep on winning our games. And until it's over, I'll keep backing my team. But I do feel really down tonight, as I'm sure a lot of supporters listening and watching do as well. I said before the game, for Rangers it was a must-win game, and it's because of the fixtures that are upcoming. I'm looking at that post-split run, and the fact that we are having to go to Celtic Park in Tynecastle, I think we've got a very tough post-split fixtures, and I wanted us to bank the points now so that we could potentially lose the points on the other side. I think I'd said recently that 80 feels like the magic number that we need to get to. That's only allowing us to drop 6 points between now and the end of the season. We've dropped 2 today, so we can only drop 4 more points if we want to win the league. And right now, I just don't see that being possible.
One thing I do want to end on, I thought the tifo was excellent, Rob. Really, really clever. I really, really liked the way that they done it. I sit next to the director's box, so I'm always looking across just to see what you guys are up to. And historically, easy for me to say, you often see the sort of larger bits of stuff sitting along the holding, so you know that the guys are going to appear and they're going to pull it up. Something's going to come down for the pulley. And I couldn't clock that there was something right at the sort of the top of the sort of rear tier, and then when it dropped down, and they eventually got it unravelled, looked great, and then they pulled along the bit at the bottom. And I thought, that's quite clever. And I must have looked away for maybe 10 seconds or so, maybe gave them a bit of stick in the corner. And then when I looked back, the guys that were out doing the graffiti over the thing, it was really, really clever. So it was fantastic, very impressive. And again, the guys that are responsible for that, and I appreciate they get a bit of financial backing to make it all happen. The club support them as well. It was fantastic. They deserve a lot of kudos and credit for that, as do the support generally for the first half, I have to say. I said sort of last night when we spoke and we looked ahead to the game, the support had a huge part to play today. And while I appreciate that the result didn't end the way that we wanted it to end, the first half was excellent. Ibrox was loud, it was bouncing. There's no doubt in my mind that the new guys, Naderi, Chermiti to a degree, Scov Olsen, Tochi, where they looked at that atmosphere and felt that atmosphere and thought, wow, this is what we've came here for, to hear this noise, to be involved in moments like this, to be involved in big matches like this. You would hope that it spurs them on to enjoy some more moments like that as time passes, and hopefully they become successful Rangers players. This has been a bit like therapy. I don't know if you enjoyed it. Rob, thanks for coming on, mate.
Appreciate it. Thank you, mate. And let's just hope that we win and control our own games better than we did today from now on. That would make it a lot easier for us.
Absolutely agree. Sheryl, good to see you.
Yeah, listen, lovely to be back on with you guys, the Sunday night OGs, and the new guy as well. I think he did incredibly well. So it would be nice to see him again at some point this year if he can fit us into his busy schedule.
New guy, Dougie. That was aimed at you, Dougie, just in case you weren't sure. It's always good to have you on, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, good to be on. Good to see you guys. Always a pleasure of your company. Let's hope on Sunday next week the players show the same fighting spirit that they showed after the full-time whistle went today on the park, and they do their talking with a result.
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree. If you are not following us across social media, then you absolutely should. We are at all the obvious places at Four Lads Have a Dream. I should say thanks to the Sunday Show sponsor, the local darts shop online. They accommodate all your arrows requirements, including installations in your pubs, clubs, social events, garages, and the follow-up accessories that you need, of course, which are effectively the arrows. Visit them at all the W's, localdartshop.co.uk, sponsoring us throughout this. Shut up. Sponsoring us during the season as well. Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions, CSD Air Conditioning, Candid, Black Rooster, and Art of Gold. I am back in 2 weeks. Rob returns next week to see if he can do it as well as me. Good luck to him for that. And we will be back in a fortnight. Bye for now. Good night.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.